Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show for June 30th. Can't believe we've gotten through June already. Peter Thomas Fornatal back with you, back from overseas and ensconced once again in the Brooklyn bunker. We're doing a dual purpose show today on the In the Money YouTube channel and also on the In the Money Players podcast, wherever you get your pods. Going to be talking about the major loss suffered by the industry. Going to be talking about the racing from last weekend. And to do that with me, bring in two very familiar guests, Nick Tammaro and Jonathon Kinchen. What's up, boys? What's cooking?
Plenty going on. Busy time, my man.
I feel like
no rest.
I feel like the three of us haven't been together, and I can't think of the last time we were like in this. It had to be like in a Peter Luger's or something.
We need to amend that, by the way, perhaps as soon as this Saratoga meet unofficially kicking off this weekend. Nick, will we see you up there at all?
As of last night, there's now a chance sooner than I expected. So there's a chance that it could be second week.
Great. You may miss me because I'm making a little Del Mar run, but we'll see. Hopefully all of our paths will cross. JK, are you ensconced up there yet, or are you? What's your plan?
Yeah, what's today? Today is Monday. Tomorrow is tomorrow's my birthday. So we'll be in the city tomorrow doing, I don't know what my wife and son have planned, but I'm sure it's something interesting. And then we're going to head up on Wednesday. We're going to get there Wednesday, and the Salivo count is going to be up high again this year because we're not staying with the in-laws. They're this year we're staying at Hotel Brookmere, which is also a new partner with In the Money. So we'll talk about that. If you're looking for somewhere to stay for Saratoga, Hotel Brookmere, make sure you tell them we sent you. But I'm going to be salivoing a lot because we don't got a kitchen now. So we're back to hotel life.
Well, I think that'll be fun and a chance for us to hopefully get together, people to see you, say hi while they're walking by, not while his mouth is full of people, though. That's not pretty. You don't want to see that. But we're going to we got a lot of Saratoga coverage. That there is going to be some free stuff. JK going to be doing videos. Nick and I still trying to finalize exactly what the free coverage is going to look like. Adelphi Racing, our great friends, sponsoring the coverage for every Saturday. If you want all the Saratoga coverage, you definitely need to do In the Money Plus, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. There'll be more from Nick, more from me on there. Also, Frank Scattoni is going to be back in the mix covering Del Mar for us on there. You don't want to miss any of it. I mean, there's loads of good free stuff. Like, it's not like, oh God, you need plus, but if you want everything, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus, the place to go. Now, we don't have a ton of time today, and I've spent 3 minutes chit-chatting and doing plugs. So it's time to dive right in. Let's talk about what I alluded to up top, the loss of Dwayne Lukas. I thought Jay Privman's article in DRF on the topic was amazing, really about how he transformed from this divisive figure when I came into the game back in the 90s to the lovable, racing's lovable uncle who nobody had any beef with for the last several years with his career, one of the more remarkable career inventions of all time. Nick, I know you were a fan for a long time coming into the game at the age you were when you did. What were your emotions on learning of the passing of the coach?
Yeah, obviously sad to see, anytime a titan of the game passes on, you are reminded, look, all of us have lost our fathers, so we know that father time's undefeated, right? It happens eventually, and everybody reaches a point where they can't go on. And, I think we saw, I guess, and you alluded to Jay's story, which is phenomenal. And this is a topic actually Jay and I have talked about personally. And he had shared with me some of the trials and tribulations of dealing with Wayne back in the 90s and how it was difficult. And he could be particularly caustic, is the word that Jay used. And I laughed, of course, at him recounting the story of Lukas introducing Bobby Knight to the horses at the barn and then pointing to the media and saying, Bobby, those are the horses' asses. And which is a story I've heard repeated quite a few times. But, as you alluded to as well, Pete, he became kind of racing's grandpa in the last 10 years or so. And I think Oaklawn went a long way towards kind of reinventing him a little bit. He got very connected with the fans there. And Oaklawn did a phenomenal tribute on social media to the coach and had a lot of clips of him appearing with Nancy Holthus. And that was all really terrific. But, from a horse player's perspective, what Lukas was he was just he was this sort of larger than life figure, right? It was, I tweeted yesterday, it was the sunglasses, it was the fancy suits, the image of winning. There was just so much success, even all the way down to the white bridles. And, the white bridle, I know Jonathon's talked about the white bridle club in the past, and everybody who's involved in it takes it so seriously because it's been so synonymous with success over time. But not unlike somebody like Bobby Frankel. I mean, Wayne had an effect on the game that also hasn't necessarily been that much of a positive, even though he did it with all the right intentions. He created the super trader. He created this environment where more horses, are with fewer trainers. And, at the same time, you recognize you don't want to hate greatness by any means, but you understand the long-lasting ramifications of his success. And he had a lot of very, very good horses, a lot of tremendous races. I went back and watched the Flanders and Serena Song Juvenile Fillies in '94, which is not only a phenomenal horse race that Lukas ran 1-2 in. It's a great race call. And he's got a lot of those, right? Two of Lucas's biggest wins were races where I was cursing afterwards. I had no idea how Cat Thief won the '99 Breeders' Cup Classic, nor commendable the 2000 Belmont. So both of those were very, very frustrating for me. But there was Lukas standing afterwards as the guy that knew exactly how to pull the right string. So it's sad to see him go, and hopefully his legacy continues. Undoubtedly it will, with all the successful assistants that are now on their own, and assistants of assistants that are now on their own as well. I mean, the Lukas legacy will live on in racing for another, set of decades.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, Jonathon, as somebody who's had the pleasure of spending time with so many of the people, not just Lukas, but so many of the people on the Lukas coaching tree, as it were. How would you describe the impact that he's had on the game, not just through himself, but through this living legacy he's created of his students, as it were?
Yeah, it reminds me, people use the comparison all the time of like comparing it to like the coaching tree you'll see a lot of times in sports. But it's one of those deals where I've been around legendary coaches and seeing basically like their coaching offspring and how they all look up to them and emulate them and take things from them. And whether they agreed with everything they did or not, they always held this held them in this high regard in which they still duplicated so many things that one person did. And I see that with the Lukas training tree, right? It's like, there's so many things about Todd that is Wayne. And there's so many things about, George Weaver that is Wayne. And and you see just everyone having just the utmost respect for the accomplishment and what he was able to do. And the thing about it is that he revolutionized it, to your point. And I think that everyone in the game has a huge amount of respect for him for that. The other thing too is like, it doesn't happen often. I'll be honest, it's happened a few times where you put someone on this legendary pedestal and then you spend time with them and it's kind of underwhelming. It's like, that didn't live up to it. I wish I wouldn't have ruined the mystique. That's not the case with Wayne. One of the most nervous I ever was for doing a card talk was having Wayne. It's like, that's Wayne. Like that, it's like he's got that one name effect. That's how you don't have to say it. You can drop the D and you don't need Lukas. That's Wayne. And he was amazing. He was funny. He was charming. And when you're around people like that, it's comforting to look at someone and say, oh, now I get it. I get why you had the success you had.
Yes.
It matches up. And it's comforting to know that if you are all of those things, you can also be great. And that was my experience spending time with him. It was hard as hell to get him on the phone. He doesn't text. You had to text his wife, but then you had to call him, and it was an adventure. But it was well worth it.
Yeah. A production meeting in the middle of the show. I assume the cart talk you did with Wayne is findable somewhere. Does it stand alone on YouTube? Is it in the middle of a big show? Could we find time code? I just feel like we need to re-promote that.
I quickly tried to find it yesterday. It's somewhere, and I'll find it today. It's on my list and I can just get it from production. They can put it up. But
yeah, that's a good idea. Fun. That's a good idea. And we'll push it out if they do give some more love for the show. But yeah, just to button it up. So I came in. I wasn't going to tell the story because it's not like the nicest story to tell, but I mean, the way Jay framed it gives me an in. So I came into the game during that divisive point, saw some of the caustic, had some issues with some of the changes that, while they were totally fair play, were not things that I loved, whether it was things going on in the sales ring or on the track. And then I met the man, and he was one of those people, like, whatever preconceived notions you had when you met him, and I've only met a couple of people in my life who had this level of charisma. Only time these two will ever be compared in human history. Michael Lang, the founder of the guy who basically, with his Confederates, founded Woodstock, was similar. Somebody who I went into with preconceived notions and then met him, and they're so charming, and they radiate this otherworldly charisma in a way where when you're talking to them, no matter what you thought beforehand, you see, to your point, JK, why they're successful, and you want them to like you, and you want to like them. I mean, otherworldly stuff. Back in my Saratoga special reporting days, he was talking to Jim Cott when I came up to the two of them to say hello, and he was just, you got it, and I was thrilled to see that transformation take place thereafter. We don't have all the time in the world. You could do hours on this. We're going to cut it short, and we're going to talk about some of the racing from this past weekend because we've got limited time. Let's start off. Now, originally, JK and I were going to do this show, and then Nick actually reached out and said, "Ooh, I'd love to recap today because I've got some stuff that I want to talk about at greater length regarding the Fleur de Lis that happened on Saturday at Churchill Downs." Nick, fill us in. What's the significance of this race that made you want to take an off day and turn it into a work day by coming on the pod?
What the hell is an off day? There's no such thing. No, I obviously have a lot more free time on my hands without racing at Sam Houston. So I was actually just sitting on the couch watching racing on Saturday, which I feel like hasn't happened in probably since last December. But in the aftermath of the Fleur de Lis, both before and after, Kenny McPeak was asked what his plans were with Thorpedo Anna, and he said both times that he wanted to run her in the personal engine and then the spinster. And Andy Biancone did her job and asked him afterwards if they would consider taking on males. And he said, with a little bit more reluctance than I think we've seen from him in the past, he said, if she were to jump through the two hoops of the personal engine and the spinster, then it's something that we would consider. So I tweeted and said, basically this should be the end of the conversation of her running against males, because a guy like him, given where he has spotted her in the past and the way he's campaigned his horses, if he's not planning on doing it anytime soon, to me, he's not really planning on doing it. Furthermore, and I didn't really get into this, she has absolutely no business running against males this year. Like, they're way, way, way too good for her. And I put in my tweet, last year was last year. And what I mean by that is, I don't know if you guys feel differently, but last year's Travers is a race that exists in isolation. It is not a race that has cut from her specifically that has not been duplicated. Now, could she have left it all on the track that day? And we've been dealing with some percentage of her ever since. Quite possible. Fierceness and Sierra Leone both backed up their efforts with subsequent performances in the Classic, and Fierceness ran just as well in this year's Ali Sheba, I think, as he did in last year's Travers. Maybe not necessarily numbers-wise, but it was pretty damn close. I just think that she laid it all on the line that day, and right now, we're getting a good, solid, older female. Let's be honest. In this division, she's clearly the boss. It's a very thin division, but she is not destined to run against males with success in this campaign to me whatsoever. This is a salty group of older horses, which obviously we'll talk about the Foster in a couple of minutes, but I wanted to make sure it was clear what I was referring to is it's not taking anything away from her. It's definitely not taking anything away from him. And he called me Debbie Downer. And so I had to respond to that. And I said, I wasn't saying
he's not entirely wrong, Nick. He's not entirely wrong.
I would probably go with something a little more forceful than Debbie Downer. But I said to him, I was being complimentary of you. Everybody was doing their job. Andy Biancone is supposed to ask about it. Everybody has this sort of bizarre fascination with female horses running against males. I guess it's Wayne Lucas's fault. God rest his soul.
I was going to say, you put that one on him too.
Oh my God, it's the stupidest thing that everybody gets all worked up about. What does it really do? I understand we've seen some phenomenal performances over the years, but just let good fillies be good fillies for a period of time. What Kenny did last year with her was incredible. To lose the Travers by a head and get a 111 buyer is incredible. It's like a huge, tremendous performance, and it went a long way towards why she won the Horse of the Year. Her best effort was in defeat. Those are campaigns that you dream about. So I just wanted to make sure I clarified myself a little bit and was not throwing cold water over her. And thank God she won on Saturday. That division is a disaster. Like, it needed to be won by her. No disrespect to Darth Vader or Raging Sea or any of those horses, but those are middling older females. Those are not grade 1 horses, and the division needed it badly.
Thorpedo Anna, very impressive in victory. And this was after that La Troyenne, that was a bit of a throw up your hands, is have we reached the end kind of a race? To your point about the Travers living in isolation, I mean, if you believe in figures, which I know JK and I both do, without question, I mean, 11 points faster than her top, and even that top on the buyer scale, I mean, it was earned under the easiest possible circumstances. So, yeah, there were questions. I mean, the other way to frame it, I suppose, and JK will let you, I'm sort of devil's advocating this just for the heck of it. Seeing her run a 96 in the Fleur de Lis, seeing her get back into form, suggesting maybe there's a bit more to come. I mean, can she maybe step back up to that low hundreds and be at least a semblance of the filly we saw last year? I think you can make the case. JK, what do you think? What did you think of Thorpedo Anna on Saturday? And what do you think we're going to see from her for the rest of the year?
It's funny. I did this yesterday on the show. We talked about it. And so it's already, I can just repeat it. I don't have to rethink it. It's in racing. I think we make the mistake, or I try not to. And I know that we all try not to, but I think some people make the mistake that like one thing has to be true and 2 or 3 things can't be true about the same topic. I think there's 3 things that are true about this. 1, she is not that good. She's just not that good. She had 1 outlier race. She has been the best of a average group of 3-year-olds and distaff runners last year. She is always going to present value because she's going to be bet as if she's Rachel Alexandra, and she's not. And I am a huge fan of hers. And all of those things can be true. And I'm glad she's running and I'm glad she's racing. But a good grade 1 mare is problematic for her. The problem is the good thing is for them is she keeps running into grade 2 mares and then she beats them. But then in a circumstance where a grade 1 shows up, she gets a little adversity. I think she struggles with that. And, for me, she's a really cool horse, but she's just not like an overwhelming superstar that can overcome all kinds of adversity and beat really good horses.
I mean, I would say, are you saying, can I ask real quick, are you saying not that good in the context of like all-time great mares?
Right. Yes. Yeah. She's a sensational horse, but she's not get tattooed on my arm special. You know what I mean? Like, and I also
Kenny McPeak got her tattooed on his arm.
Yes, so, and you almost did too.
I almost did, but I will say
ahead
this, though,
from getting her tattooed.
I think the answer to the question is why do people want to see the girls against the boys is because some of the most exciting moments in the last 10, 15, 20 years, and even back to winning colors, are when you see that happen, right? When Rags to Riches, and it
becomes a sporting event more than a racing event. Yeah. I think it captures the imagination. You're so down the rabbit hole of being like living and breathing racing, Nick. I think that sometimes we can lose sight of the things that will like get the average sports fan excited about racing. And for whatever reason, the battle of the sexes thing, I guess, is it just becomes necessarily more of a story. So I think that's the attraction to it. But I think you're right. The way that Kenny talked about it the other day it sounds like she'd have to, as much as she proved that she's still a legit grade 1 animal the other day, she didn't do anything to make me thinking, oh, well, she's going to clearly run in the Classic now. I think it's a run out the table. I think the way reading between the lines of what Kenny McPeak said about her, I think that's right. My only fact check on you, JK, is you made it sound like she'd come up against a grade 1 filly and lost. That's never happened.
No. I'm just saying that, like, look back at some of the recent champions, right? Like that we've had, like the ones that were running big numbers, right? I mean, I want to say like Idiomatic was a triple digit buyer type, right? I'm going blank a little bit.
Beholder and Songbird come up as pretty favorable comparison points.
There you go.
And I mean,
I think those two. I feel like those two. They could race 10 times.
Better than Thorpedo Anna.
She would never beat them. Yeah.
Yeah. I think both were better than her. Yeah. I mean, look, you always exist in the time in which you are, right? And so you can only run against 2 lines up with you. And I will say one thing, and I was going to say it about Mystik Dan when we talk about the Foster, but one of the things I admire about Kenny McPeak's training, and I feel like one of the things that I'm starting to study more as I look at, 500 races a week, is form cycles and how horses go in and out of form. Kenny, with both Thorpedo Anna and Mystik Dan sort of got them back in form during a campaign, which is not easy to do. And it says a lot about the way he works, trains, and runs his horses, that he's very aggressive. He's very old school, in that you could get a lot of these guys would have just said after she ran in the La Troyenne, she's done. She's done we're turning her out. We're going to give her 60 days. If Todd Pletcher trains Thorpedo Anna, we're not seeing her again until the fall, right? He would have backed off her entirely. Kenny was able to just kind of take a deep breath, and you knew from her workouts, she was definitely doing better, and she definitely ran better. Right. And almost the exact same thing has played out with Mystik Dan, who now has run 3 very much improved races in a row.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue to talking about this, because speaking of form cycles, this race, the Stephen Foster, make no mistake, this 4th beaten 2.5 to this group, this, from a buyer point of view, represented a tie career top, faster even than the Derby run, coming in at 101. And this is a horse where, I guess the bad news for Mystik Dan is, I want to say, there'll be a day when he could get a big setup and have another valuable grade 1 prize next to his name. But the bad news for Mystik Dan is that setup is the same one that'll favor Sierra Leone too. And he might just be a little bit better of a horse than Mystik Dan. I'm hedging that too much. He is a better horse than Mystik Dan, but this has been a tremendous training job. And it's great to see a Derby winner putting up 100 figures and running respectable races at 4. We'll get to the winners or the winner in a minute, but what do you expect specifically we're going to see from Mystik Dan, Nick? Do you think it's drop in class, start winning again, or do you think he's just going to be a player, but maybe find 1 or 2 better in the top races in the country?
I think you're supposed to get him to Saratoga, see how he's doing, and run him in the Whitney. I don't think he lost this race by enough to sort of wave the white flag. You could then maybe zig when everybody zags and look at the Jockey Club Gold Cup if a lot of horses are given some time after the Whitney. So I don't think he was disgraced by any means, and it's great to see him back performing at a high level, no doubt.
Let's get to the winner, Mindframe. Boy, this horse, he showed this promise last year. He's delivering on it this year. 105 Beyer speed figure in victory in the grade 1 Stephen Foster, a horse that really has the advantage too over some of the better horses, older horses right now. Well, Sierra Leone specifically. Mindframe makes his own trip. Sierra Leone does not. I mean, he's got his own stablemate as one to talk about in terms of, is he the best in the division? But this was very cool to see this development of Mindframe, who, maybe those, as good as he was in the Belmont and Haskell, maybe a little too much too soon. I think we're seeing the finished product now. How good is Mindframe, and how good is he going to get, JK?
Yeah, I think he's pretty darn good. I think that it's going to be fun to watch the Operation Dodge. They're 2 big horses. I think that they'll keep them separated until the Classic. So that's good for us. It's good for racing, I think, to be able to see them get those 2 animals in all the spots along the way. I mean, he's good. He showed how much talent he had as a 3-year-old. And like you said, Pete, it was probably a little too much too soon. The good news is that, just to remind everyone, that too much too soon doesn't always ruin a good horse. You can challenge them to do things, and then they can still end up being grade 1 winners. So I think he's good. I think he's really good. He's going to be fun to watch.
Nick, what's your take on Sierra Leone specifically versus a Mindframe or a Fierceness? Is he always going to need a little bit of a setup? I mean, that's kind of the way it's looking at his PP right now. Could he maybe have another gear as the year goes on, or is it just going to be, as so many races are, a question of how the pace shapes up as to who'll have the advantage?
It's an interesting question, because I guess it really boils down to what they covet, and they may not care that Sierra Leone doesn't get a good pace setup until the Classic. If they do, then they should start entering a rabbit. Quite simply, there's just no argument against it. And we've seen good late closing horses have a rabbit. Strike the Gold had a buddy named Loach who made his job a lot easier every time. And, Loach was a good horse in his own right. So I think that's what they should do. That's how they should approach it. I thought he ran tremendously well in defeat. And obviously his running style is what always makes late closing horses vulnerable in dirt routes. If you don't get enough pace to run at, it's going to make your job that much harder. And I hope that I'm sure he'll be in the Whitney. I think there's some chatter about him maybe not liking Saratoga as much as other places. I don't buy that. I think he ran as well in the Travers and Jim Dandy and Belmont as he did in any race save maybe the Breeders' Cup Classic. And on the topic of Mindframe, surely someone who calls himself the commish and thumbs his nose at anyone who might not make good decisions with regards to racing is not going to not run his 2 colts that already have stud deals against each other, right? Come on.
Don't hold your breath, Nick. Don't hold your breath as far as that.
Matt Cummings is going to get an earful from me if Mindframe and Fierceness aren't both in the Whitney.
I was surprised, just because Nick brought it up, I wasn't going to push back on this, but I was surprised, JK, that you framed it as something that could be good for racing to have them separated. What did you mean by that? I thought we always wanted to see the best against the best.
Yeah, but yes, but like these races, the handicap division is doing well. We have a good handicap division this year, so every race is going to be good.
2024.
Yeah, every race is going to be good, right? Like the Whitney's going to be good, the Gold Cup's going to be good. They're all going to be good moving forward. So I do think it's interesting if you have two really good horses to have they're going to be running and they're going to overrun. The Whitney's not going to be the best race all summer, and we're not going to see anything else ever good again until the Classic. And so I understand the other side of the argument too. I'd love to see them run against each other, but if they stay on the same path, it'll be fun to watch them run against each other in the Classic.
It'll all come together there at Del Mar. Boys, we're out of time for this edition of the show. We're going to be back. We'll have some bonus content this week. I have a feeling, not exactly sure what it's going to be, but thank you, Nick, and thank you, JK. Got to thank very quickly our founding partners, 10 Strike Racing. We all love to root for the purple and black around here. Also, the great work done by our charity partners, Therapeutic Horses of Saratoga. To learn more about them and the work they do, go to inthemoneypodcast.com/horses. We're going to be back very soon. Make sure you check out In the Money Plus for all your Saratoga needs. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.